please allow me to read this paper. So, I'd like to tell that mapping of the Haruki Murakami's fictions is a very good qualitative data for reading. Let me pick up some novels as an example. I'll come to that. In Haruki Murakami fictions, characters often walk in the places which reader can concretely identify easily. It hence popular now in Japan that reader traces the roots of the character's walks in that book. In addition, Murakami often describes buildings belonging to transnational companies such as Nike, McDonald's, KFC, and so on. And hence, the reader in the world can imagine their familiar towns and cities in scenarios in Murakami's fiction. And many scholars think little of the map and the walking route because they think the route has nothing to do with any topics of Murakami's novels. But I don't think so. We should take notice of the map on the ground and on the ground at the same time. In other words, 3D map. It will contribute to the readers who have questions what Murakami wants to tell about it. While Murakami describes the world on the ground very concretely, he always has in mind the subterranean world of Japan with its link to violence and death. And that the Yami-kuro under the ground commit all the violence in Japan in his mind. For reference, Yami means dark, and Kuro means black in Japanese. And anagram of Yami-kuro is I found, I mark you. The subterranean world where the Yami-kuro lived in the place of the past, and the world on the ground is the place of the present day. To this point, I superimpose a map of ancient Japan on that of present-day Japan, and found that the concretely mentioned buildings and places on the ground in Murakami's novels are actually located above archaeological digs, such as the ancient tomb, a cemetery, a crematorium, a ritual place. In other words, they are built on top of the places under which the dead are concealed. Additionally, the characters often walk along the edge of a cave. Archaeologically speaking, the top of the cave and the water's edge are contact points between the living in this world and the dead in the other world, and they are entrances into the world of the dead in ancient people's minds. As an example, let's see the Norwegian word, Watanabe, the protagonist, says, death exists not as opposite but as a part of life. And in the midst of life, everything revolves around death. Now let's see the route of walking, especially the route from Yotsuya to Komagome, where Watanabe walks, following Naoko with her dead boyfriend Kizuki in her memory. This walk is special for them, and thus is significant to the novel. They always go out walking together and talking, but only the route between Yotsuya and Komagome is described in detail in the text, and is remembered by Watanabe after Naoko's death. Additionally, Naoko's frame of mind is mystified, as if something controls her walking. When arriving at Komagome, she walks Watanabe. Where are we? What happened to her? Now let's confirm the route of their walking. This is Japan, and that is Tokyo. And let me trace the text. First, they take a train at Yotsuya, and we're walking toward Ichigaya along the embankment by the railway tracks. She turns right at Idabashi. Many of us Japanese scholars always doubt why they have to make the right turn here, because to Komagome, they have to go straight. It will be a shortcut from here to there. And next, came out at the boat. They crossed the intersection at Jimbocho. They climbed the hill at Ochanomizu. And came out at Hongo. Hongo is famous for Tokyo University. And from there, she followed the trolley tracks to Komagome. That is a route on the ground. This is a map. As I told, Murakami is obsessed with the subterranean, and hence I superimposed the map on the ground of ancient Japan on the map of today, on the walking. This is the ancient map of Japan, and Yotsuya, Iidabashi, Ochanomizu, Hongo, and Komagome. So, first, they start here in Yotsuya, and then go around the cave, and go through the Hongo area. And they arrive in Komagome. The area of the pink is ancient tombs. And this is a map of their walking. They go around, walk around the edge of the caves, and go through some areas of the graveyards. Here is Iidabashi. As I told you, some scholars always think about why they have to make a right turn here. They just they just follow that edge of the cave. And the map says that Naoko, who suffered from mental violence because of the death of Suzuki, walks around the edge of the cone-shaped cave and above ancient graves and ruins. In short, she walks on the border between this world and the dark world. It means that the dead Kizuki tries to drag Naoko into his world, that world. Additionally, her death is not only due to her private memory, but also links to history of Japan, of both of which an agency I consist. She walks through the places Yotsuya, Ichigaya, the old castle mount, Ochanomizu, Hongo, and Komagome, where violence and death repeatedly happen since the beginning of Japan. For example, one legend tells Komagome was named by Yamato Takeru no Mikoto, a mythical celebrated man who contributed to the violent nation building in Japan by the Yamato dynasty. He had a fiery temper and was distinguished by valor. Komagome directly connects to the origin of the history of Japan, which started with violence and death. And here and now in Japan, Naoko is hurt by Kizuki's death, lives with him in her memory, and finally commits suicide. She is on the border between this world and that world, and is dragged into the other world. It's not only true to Naoko, but to many people in Murakami's fictions, of course, including Watanabe. It is obsessed with the past of his own past and past of Japan. And he cannot live here and now, breaking the relation with others of present day, but lives alone with the past and the death, dragged into the world of the past. In the end of the novel, Watanabe, who lives with the memory of the dead Naoko, also says a similar thing as when Naoko, who lived with memory of the dead Kizuki, arrived at Komagome, where was I? He also is dragged from this world to the other world by the past or the dead, as if the dead is with him. Another cycle of the death and the balance. Such a web of life cannot be recommended in Murakami's mind. Still, he doesn't think that a person should totally cut off from the past. It will be possible if a person totally abandons memory. However, without any memory, people cannot recognize others or themselves or ourselves. Such a situation is a found expression in Hardware 101. The past, the dead, and the lost can connect people by way of their memory, which is a kind of network for human relation. Murakami has that people should concentrate on the life here and now with a memory of the past and the dead, or something they lost. It is also a theme of Murakami's fiction. For example, Dance, Dance, Dance. The novel started with similar sentences with where am I, as Watanabe says in the end of the Norwegian word, as if it is a sequel. The protagonist of Dance, Dance, Dance lives with a memory of a girl who disappeared. Such a protagonist is called a member of the spook club. His life like that is also found expression in his walking route. In Tokyo, the protagonist almost always take a walk on one route like this. The route is from his house in Shibuya through Harajuku, Sendagaya area, the Jingu Baseball Stadium, Aoyama Boulevard, Aoyama Cemetery, the Laser Museum, Minami Aoyama, Montesando, and the Jinta building back to Shibuya. This is the map of the area today. And this is the ancient superimposed on that of today. And this is the comparison of the maps of today and the ancient world. Do the same. The protagonist also walks around the edge of the escapes and passes the huge cemetery, where a lot of the spirits of the dead are. In addition, he starts in Shibuya and returns there. Shibuya, or his house, was the bottom of the valley and the bottom of the sea. The area has many ancient tombs and a huge crematorium under the ground. He is also being dragged into the past, the world of the dead, as he is called as resident in the world of spook. However, he finally tries to live here and now, dancing according to the advice which the sheepman gives him. The sheepman, who is a creature that lives in other world, said, continue dancing like this. The protagonist asked the sheepman, you said that if I stay fixed in place, I'm going to drag from that world to this world, or something like that. But isn't this world meant for me? Doesn't it exist for me? And so what's the problem? What the sheepman says is only dancing. According to the sheepman's advice, the protagonist can avoid being dragged to the sheepman's world as long as he continues dancing, because he will lose any connection on the world, on the ground forever if he is just sitting and thinking. It means that if he lives just with some memory, is dragged into the world of the dead, and hence not to completely stay in the world of the dead. And he should drive himself to do something, to go forward step by step, or live here and now, which is symbolized in dance. He says, I'm moving forward intently one step at a time. I have focus, goal, which somehow quite naturally, lightening my step, almost gave me soft shoe footwork. This was a good sign. Dance, keeping step, light but steady. Freshen up, maintain a rhythm, keep things going. I had to pay careful attention where this was leading me to next, and to make sure I stay in this one. Now, let's see the hard-work wander around and the end of the world. The protagonist leaves. Totally disappointed at his current work, especially the hyper-capitalism Japan, where he lives bored, suffering from the memory of his mental violence, including the lost his beloved woman again. He wants to erase his memory. This novel consists of two parts: the world, or his current public world, and the wonderland, or his peaceful inner world, where you can peacefully live without any memory and without any ability to recognize others. The protagonist also tries to cut from off his own memory, in other words, to stay in a peaceful wonderland. And this is the map of wonderland inside in the novel. What we should take a notice is that this inner world has layers of history. First, taking a notice of the shape of the wall surrounding them, and the wonderland and the place of the area of the pool. The world is similar to Edo Castle in the Edo era, where Tokugawa Shogun, who governed Japan, closing the door on the other countries from 1603 to 1868. The castle and the town is under the ground now, of course. Furthermore, taking a notice of the same things, the maps of the Wonderland and the Edo Castle are also similar to the map of the area the protagonist lives now, which is the area surrounded by the Meiji Jingu Shrine, the Meiji Jingu Gaien, and Aoyama Cemetery. All of them relate with the Meiji Emperor, who started a policy of increasing wealth and military power with westernization of Japan. The layers on the land remind us of traditional Japan and westernized and modernized Japan, and both of them are elements of current Japan and Japanese. The red circle on the map today is the place where the protagonist lives, and the red circle is equal to the wall built up surrounding his inner world, or in the map of the Wonderland. And the most surrounding the Edo Castle too. These maps show the layers of history, which is a metaphor that Japanese has not been able to get out of the circle of memory and history of tradition of Japan, and increase of wealth and military power with westernization of Japan after 1868 and its consequences. After westernization, Japan has been through a cycle of violence and death, civil strikes, assassinations, war against the other countries. The history is not only history of Japan, but also of each Japanese, Murakami thinks that people should live on the ground under which there has been a cycle of balance of the depth. In spite of the flat, or Yamikuro, which live under the ground, always control balance on the ground. The protagonist tries once to cut from off his own memory. In other words, to say the peaceful world without any memory. However, he finally tries to live with memory and tie others with the ability to recognize others. It means that he tries to live here and now with memory and tie with others by way of memory, even if that memory is hurtful to him. This philosophy of Murakami has been repeated with the map of the ground and subterranean since his first novel, Here the Wind Sings. It is of course true to one of Murakami's new books, Colorless School of Tazaki and His Years of Pilgrimage, novel 2. This novel also consists mainly of two towns, Nagoya and Tokyo. In this novel, the protagonist suffers from his life because he cannot feel connection with other people. He was suddenly ignored by his friends in Nagoya when a girl who was one of their friends committed suicide. Tasaki's friend misunderstood that he caused the girl to commit suicide. Hence, Tasaki wants to totally forget his memory in vain and wants to commit suicide. For Tasaki, Nagoya is a place in the past which he is obsessed with and dragged into the other world of life. In a sense, a life in Nagoya for Tasaki is like a life in Shibuya for the protagonist, dance. In other words, the life is at the bottom of the sea or the other one, certainly. As this map shows, Nagoya was the bottom of the sea like Shibuya. However, Tasaki finally tries to live here and now with his memory and ties other people by way of memory. This is suggested by his name from the beginning of the novel. His name is Tsukuru Tasaki. Tsukuru means make, and the Tasaki means a lot of capes in Japanese. A cape, as I showed in the map, the borderline between the world of the present day and the other world of the past. The both can be tied with memory, and the memory can connect people with each other. Making a lot of capes means, hence making a network of people. What we should take notice is that names of the characters in the novels have various colors such as white, yellow, red, black, and so on. The fact reminds us that Murakami has a philosophy that all the people in this world should connect each other by way of memory, even if the memory is hurtful, and they should go forward step by step. That's what Murakami wants to say in my mind. Thank you very much.